Cats, one of humans' oldest companions. If you look at the internet, they're everywhere, wreaking havoc in the house, performing impressive feats of mid-air aerobatics, and helping us stay productive in the home office. But not everyone likes cats in Australia. In fact, they are a rather divisive topic. I'm Jack Gorman, and I'm a first-time cat owner. I've since noticed that there's a war on cats going on. Cats have been declared number one. That is to say, the number one cause of loss of native wildlife. Have our domestic companions strayed into the wild, and like secret agents deep undercover in the Australian bush, gone native? And will it be the Australian native wildlife that pays the ultimate cost? Let's find out. We're starting our journey at my place, in a suburb called Ashfield, in Sydney's inner west. Let's go find us some cats. Cats have long been one of mankind's chosen domestic companions, and seeing how cute and fluffy they are, it's hardly surprising. However, recently they have been identified as one of the number one causes for loss of native wildlife. Cats are natural predators, and on a continent like Australia, which has a low number of top-level predators, it's hardly surprising that they've had a dramatic effect on our native wildlife. But how did they get here in the first place? Recent research indicates that it's likely cats arrived with the first fleet, probably brought along as a means of pest control for European settlers, as stowaway mice and rabbits had also made the journey down under. Cats were introduced to farms and cattle stations to control other vermin, and often left to breed and fend for themselves. Cats are territorial creatures, and once the local food source of vermin reaches its capacity, cats are pushed out to find their own territory and prey on native animals in the outback. These guys, however, are very tame, and unlikely to prey on anything but your heartstrings. To find out more about how bad Australia's feral cat problem is, I spoke to Professor John Winarski, co-author of Australia's State of the Nation report, The Action Plan for Australian Mammals.
Australia has lost more species of mammals and more species of plants than any other country in the world over the last 200 years. Those species, we've lost, I think, 30 species of mammals, which were restricted to Australia, have become extinct over just that 200-year period, at a rate of loss of about 1 to 2 species per decade since about the mid-19th century. And that rate of loss is continuing, it's unabated. We're still losing species at about the same rate. So, for example, we've lost 3 species of vertebrates since 2009. You know, there's no other country in the world, I think, which is such a dire rate currently. The evidence is sufficient and it's compelling. We know the times at which many of these species disappeared. We know the times at which feral cats spread across Australia as well. And there's a very strong concordance in the spread of cats and the disappearance of many native mammal species.
Earlier this year, the federal government announced a measure of culling 2 million cats nationwide as part of a national strategy for threatened species. 2 million seems like a lot, but what does that number mean? Can we know how many feral cats there are in Australia?
We know the human population of Australia really precisely. That's because we put a huge amount of effort into monitoring human populations through censuses done by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. We have that comparable information for hardly any species of wildlife in Australia. And the only ones we really do have such information, such precise details for, are large species like kangaroos or camels that you can count precisely from the air. Or, at the very other extreme, species which are down to maybe 5 to 20 individuals, where you can count every single individual and know exactly what the population is. So it's no surprise that we don't have really reliable or good population estimates for feral cats. The feral cats are hard, they're nocturnal, they're furtive, they're relatively small compared to camels or kangaroos, so it's really hard to get good population estimates for them.
With such a broad range on the estimates, how can we know the government's plan to cull 2 million cats will be enough? I reached out to Federal Environment Minister Greg Hunt to comment on the proposed strategy and received a written response from the Threatened Species Commissioner Gregory Andrews' office. The success of cat-free areas in the recovery of small mammals demonstrates the positive impact that can be achieved by removing feral cats. Landscape management of feral cats will be done in areas of high conservation value, where the reduction of feral cats will support the recovery of threatened species. By reducing the impact of feral cats, we are reducing one of the key threats to the 124 listed threatened species. So eradication targets will apply to selected areas identified as having conservation value. To understand more about what is currently being done to control feral cats in the bush, I spoke to Ben Russell, Senior Team Leader in the Pest and Weeds team for the New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service.
We have less ways of dealing with cats than other pest species. The key thing that we'd like to have is a way to bait them, but unlike foxes and dogs, they don't readily take baits in a way that would allow us to safely target cats and not pick up other wildlife. So until we can develop some system along those lines, we're limited to shooting and trapping, and because they are very elusive animals, that's a very resource intensive way of dealing with them. So we can do it at very targeted smaller scale sites, but we can't get that sort of broad scale landscape level reduction in cat numbers that you need to really properly protect our native wildlife.
As well as baiting, there's been substantial success using cat exclusion devices, particularly fences, and they work well, but they're expensive, and you can only fence a relatively small amount of area, given the size of the fence, the costs of the fence, and the amount of ongoing maintenance that needs to be done to them. But they are fail-safe, essentially.
Baiting, trapping, and cat exclusion devices are methods currently being used, but we have no silver bullet for cat control yet. However, UNSW PhD student Daniel Hunter has some ideas about an alternative method that could help with population control.
The idea of rewilding is basically bringing mainly top predators like dingoes, Tasmanian devils, spotted quolls, bringing them back into areas where they once existed to help control feral predators. So what happens is, in many parts of Australia, we remove our top predators, usually because they are a threat to livestock. And when we remove them, foxes and feral cats are able to basically run rampant. So putting predators, top predators back in, can suppress foxes and cats and benefit our native mammal species.
Considering that Tasmanian devils themselves are an endangered species, there is still work to be done in developing and researching a rewilding strategy. It can seem like our domestic companions are quite far removed from Australia's feral cat problem. But their history as our pets mean that we are responsible for them, and together we need to make sure that no more cats enter the feral population. This starts with responsible pet ownership, and that means containing your cats at night time to prevent them from preying on native wildlife, and making sure your cat is desexed so that no unwanted kittens arrive. This is where I'll leave you. Thank you for watching.